Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You know we love to take you to some pretty fascinating places, and today, well, we're heading to Nepal.
A country with a story that I think a lot of folks are going to find, well, really, really surprising.
Yeah, so we're talking about Nepal's last king,
Right.
King Gyanendra.
Right. And even though Nepal is a democracy now, there's still this undercurrent of discussion, even debate, you could say,
Hmm.
about whether the monarchy could somehow, come back.
And it's kind of wild when you think about it, right? Because this was the world's only Hindu kingdom.
Right, where the king was actually seen as like a living god, an incarnation of Vishnu.
It's a huge part of their history and culture, and now it's a republic, but that question about the monarchy, it just keeps popping up.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we are going to unpack in this deep dive today.
Really?
What are the historical threads that led to this point? What happened that ended the monarchy in the first place? And what's fueling these discussions about its possible return?
We're going to take you through the whole thing. So to really set the stage, you got to understand that for centuries, Nepal really was unique on the world stage. It was the only Hindu kingdom.
Right? And the Shah dynasty ruled for a very long time. But it wasn't just political power. It was something more. These monarchs, they were deeply revered by the people. Like we said, seen as earthly incarnations of Vishnu.
It gave them a kind of authority and legitimacy that most rulers could only dream of.
Right.
I mean, imagine if your political system was literally intertwined with your religion. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Oh, absolutely. It was totally woven in to the fabric of Nepal's identity. You can't separate the two. And that's a really important thing for us to remember as we go through all this.
Okay, so fast forward now. We come to King Gyanendra. And it's actually super important to note that he wasn't the direct heir. His brother, King Birendra, was on the throne, and he was pretty popular. But then came that just horrific night, June 1st, 2001.
The royal massacre.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around it. King Birendra, Queen Ishwarya, and so many other members of the royal family just gone.
And the official story is that it was the crown prince, Devendra, who did it.
And then he turned the gun on himself.
Right. But of course, that just throws up a whole bunch of questions, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. And it really kind of shattered that image, that aura of the monarchy as, well, as untouchable and sacred. And, of course, conspiracy theories just went wild.
Some people even pointed the finger at Gyanendra. I mean, there was never any hard evidence.
Right. But it definitely cast a shadow over his ascension to the throne. I mean, think about it. He becomes king under just the worst possible circumstances. National tragedy, whispers of foul play, it really weakened the monarchy as a whole.
And that really set the stage for what was to come. I mean, you have this backdrop of national trauma and uncertainty. And then you have the Maoist insurgency, which had already been going on for 5 years at that point.
Right.
They wanted to get rid of the monarchy completely and set up a communist republic.
Gyanendra really walked into a total pressure cooker. I mean, he's dealing with this grief, this suspicion, and a full-blown internal conflict that's trying to tear the country apart.
So he starts to get more directly involved in politics. He's not content to just be a figurehead.
Right. And he actually dismissed the government, multiple times.
Yeah, he kept saying that they weren't doing enough to deal with the Maoists or, hold elections and all that.
And then in 2005, boom, he declares a state of emergency and just takes direct control. No more messing around. It was a total power grab back to an absolute monarchy.
And that was a major turning point. Nepal had been moving slowly towards a more constitutional monarchy, and then bam, he just reverses it all. And of course, it sparked outrage, both in Nepal and internationally.
Oh, yeah. Censorship, arrests, the whole 9 yards. The US, the UK, India, they all condemned him pretty strongly. But, it's interesting, even inside Nepal, public opinion was divided.
Right. I mean, some people were terrified. They saw it as like a dictatorship in the making. But others, maybe they were just so desperate for stability, they actually supported Gyanendra's strongman approach.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
And it all leads to this really remarkable alliance. You've got civil society groups, political parties, and even the Maoists themselves, all united against the king.
It's one of those moments in history where, everyone just sets aside their differences because the stakes are so high.
And that leads to the People's Movement in April 2006. And I mean, these were massive pro-democracy protests that just shut the entire country down for 3 weeks. The pressure was just relentless.
And Gyanendra had no choice. He had to back down.
Right. He gives up power and brings back parliament. That was just the beginning of the changes, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I mean, things were moving really fast now.
Mhm.
The Maoists come into the political mainstream. They lay down their arms and become a legitimate political party.
And then 2008. Nepal votes to abolish the monarchy entirely. Hundreds of years of royal rule just over. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
I mean, May 28th, 2008, that's a date that's etched in Nepal's history. It's the day they became a federal democratic republic.
Yep.
And Gyanendra, he just kind of quietly left the palace and became a private citizen, which is such a contrast to the centuries of, royal power and ceremony that came before him.
But even though the monarchy was gone, there were still a lot of people, especially in rural areas, who felt this kind of nostalgia for it. They remembered it as a time of stability, national pride, that kind of thing.
It's really important to understand that, the monarchy was very closely tied to their Hindu faith and culture. For a lot of people, especially older folks, it was a source of comfort and identity. When that was gone, I think a lot of people felt, well, a bit lost.
And on top of that, the new republic, it had its own problems, right? Corruption, political infighting, slow economic progress.
It wasn't easy building a new system from scratch, and it left some people looking back at the days of the monarchy with, well, maybe a bit of rose-tinted glasses, thinking maybe things were better back then.
And then you have Gyanendra himself. Every now and then he'd pop up, attend a religious ceremony, or he'd give an interview and make some vague comment about how, well, the monarchy could return if the people wanted it. He was definitely keeping the door open, just a crack.
Right. And this is where things start to get really interesting. Because Nepal's political landscape, it's been anything but stable. Lots of changes in government. The whole process of writing a new constitution took forever. And, all the problems we talked about, corruption, political gridlock, they haven't gone away.
So what happens? People start getting disillusioned. They start to wonder, hey, maybe the king wasn't so bad after all.
And that's when you start seeing these online campaigns popping up. Hashtags like bring back the king. And you see it even among some young people, which is kind of surprising.
It's like they see the monarchy as a symbol of a stronger, more unified Nepal.
And Gyanendra, he's definitely noticed this shift. He's been meeting with religious leaders, giving more of those cryptic interviews where he says things like, the people will decide their own destiny.
He's playing a very long game. He's 77 years old now, but he's definitely not out of the picture.
So the question is, could he actually make a comeback? And if he did, would it actually be a good thing for Nepal?
Okay, so let's break that down. What are the arguments for bringing back the monarchy?
Well, the big one is stability. Nepal is a pretty diverse country, lots of different ethnic groups and languages. And the monarchy, well, they were seen as a unifying force, like they were above all the political squabbling.
And a lot of people feel like the current political system, it's just too corrupt. They see the monarchy as a way to clean things up.
And then there's the cultural aspect, the deep connection to Hinduism. Some people feel like that's been lost since the republic was established.
And let's not forget about the regional situation. You've got India right next door with a pretty strong Hindu nationalist movement. And then there's China, which is becoming more and more influential in Nepal.
So some people think that having a king, even if it's just symbolic, could be a way for Nepal to assert its own identity and maybe play those two powers off against each other.
It's kind of like finding a way to navigate a pretty tricky geopolitical situation.
Exactly. But, there are also some pretty big obstacles to any kind of royal comeback.
Like, for starters, you've got the Maoists. They fought tooth and nail to get rid of the monarchy, and they're not going to just sit back and let it happen again.
And then there's the Constitution. To bring back the monarchy, you'd need a national referendum. And that's a pretty high bar to clear.
And even among young people, the ones who are driving those online campaigns, there's no guarantee they'd actually vote for a king.
Right. I mean, for a lot of them, it's more of a theoretical thing. They never actually lived under the monarchy, so it's kind of a romantic idea for them.
And then there's the whole question of succession. I mean, yeah, Gyanendra is still around, but what about his son, Paras?
Oh, boy. Yeah, he's a bit controversial, to say the least. So that adds a whole other layer of complexity to this whole thing.
To really get a sense of what's going on, it's helpful to hear from actual Nepalists. Our sources talk to people from all walks of life to get their perspectives.
One guy, a shopkeeper in a city called Burgunj, he just wants to run his business and live a peaceful life. And he said he remembers things being more orderly under the monarchy.
Then there was a university student in Pokhara. He was totally against bringing back the king. He said, look, we need to move forward, not backward, embrace democracy.
And then you had this retired army officer in Kathmandu who was super loyal to the monarchy. He said it was a fundamental part of Nepal's identity and that the country was weaker without it.
It just shows you there's no easy answer here. People feel really strongly about this, and they have very different reasons for feeling the way they do.
So as we look ahead, Nepal's at a crossroads. They're trying to build a stable democracy, but they're also wrestling with their past. And Gyanendra, he's still watching, waiting.
So what do you think? Is this renewed interest in the monarchy just a passing fad? Or could it actually lead to something more? Is a royal comeback really possible?
These are tough questions, and there are no easy answers.
But what we do know is that the story of King Gyanendra, it's not over yet.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Nepal's complex political landscape. We hope you've gained a better understanding of the factors at play.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Head over to our website, leave a comment, let's keep this conversation going.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning.
Stay curious, folks. See you on our next deep dive.